also a subset of S for any scalar alpha, S is said to be a vector space. S is said to be a vector space. Right? S is said to be a vector space. S is said to be a vector space. Right? Is this clear? The idea of a vector space clear? Think of some subset of the real n-dimensional real space. Let me just finish. Think of some subset of the n-dimensional real space. Take some element, take two elements of this S, call it X and call them Y. If X plus Y is an element of the same set, and if alpha X is also an element of the same set X for any scalar alpha, the collection S is said to be a vector space. A vector space is a collection of objects closed under addition and scalar multiplication. More formally, a vector space is a collection of objects closed under addition and scalar multiplication. Right? So, now give me examples of subset of Rn which are vector spaces, and give me examples of subsets of Rn which are not vector spaces. Yeah.
So, for example, if I have something in the x, y dimension and I have something in the fourth dimension, I can always say that the vector is there in the second dimension as a unit of 0 and 0.
No, it doesn't have unit of 0 because not having 0. So, because, for example, I'll give you a, right, suppose you are describing a mango, right? Suppose you got a mango described by its weight, right? Okay, number of days it has been plucked from the tree. Sure? There are two dimensions that you have. Suppose you have a puppy, okay, right, which is described only by the weight of the puppy. So here the weight, the puppy is described by its weight. It's described in a one dimension. The mango is described by its weight, which is comparable to the puppy, and the number of days it has been plucked from the tree. Do you really think that you can think of the puppy as just been plucked from a tree by setting the dimension to 0? Yeah? So suppose somebody gives you a puppy and says, okay, this puppy weighs 4 kilos and he's just been plucked from the tree. What will you say to the puppy? You can't do that. Yeah? No, you can't. In general, you can't. If you can describe, if there's a dimension on which you can measure it, then the dimension is whatever. It could be 0, 1, 2, 3. But if the dimension is not relevant, you can't. Right? So you can't. Yeah.
So basically when alpha x is not an element of S, S will not be called a vector space, right?
If alpha x is not an element of S, then S will not be a vector space.
Then what will S be called?
It could be anything, it will not be a vector space. Right? Okay? Give me examples. So think of the set of all integers. Set of all positive integers. Is the set of all positive integers a vector space? It's a subset of R. So think of R1. Okay? Set of all integers is a subset of R1. The real number line. No? So think of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? Think of S belonging to R1, that is the real number line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let S be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is this a vector space? Is this a vector space? Suppose you take 1 and 5, you add 1 and 5, what do you get? 6. Is 6 belonging to this set? No. Right. So suppose you change this and say, let this be all integers. If you add them, do you still get an integer?
Yes.
Yes. Right? So it's at its closed end addition. But suppose I take a scalar, say 0.5, and multiply 2 with 0.5. Do I get an integer? Is 0.5 into 2 an integer? Of course it is. Is 0.7 into 2 an integer? 0.7 into 2 is an integer? No, it's not an integer. It's 1.4, no? 1.4 is not an integer. So the set of all integers is not closed under scalar multiplication, and therefore it's not a vector space. It's not a vector space. Right? Sure? Okay? Ideas clear? Okay. Now we come to something a little bit interesting object, which I want to finish today by connecting to the definition of consistency in the last lecture. Right? So, think of the two-dimensional real space. This is 0. Okay, this is 1. Think of this as 2, 2 is 3 is 4. Sorry, what am I doing? Yeah, 1, minus 1, minus. Okay? 1 and 1. Minus. Okay? Now, I take a thread. I take a rope. Okay? And I have a nail at the end of it. And a drawing pin. I put a drawing pin here. I have a thread. At the end of this thread, I have attached a pencil. Okay? And this thread is exactly 1 unit long. And I take this thread around. So what do I get? A circle. What is the radius of this circle? 1. Now, think of some point x. Okay? Think of the distance of x as square root of yeah? Because every point here will have a two-dimensional vector. So I can think of the length of every point here. Okay. Now think of all points x such that b of x is strictly less than 1. Set of all points whose distance from the origin is strictly less than 1. Yeah? Do you think? So if you started to climb from here, and if you were looking for all those points, let's say you started from 0, then you went to the next point, then you went to the next point, then you went to the next point. Do you ever think you will reach the boundary of that line? Do you ever think you will reach the boundary of that line? You will? No, because there are infinitely many points on those lines, no? So that the length is just little less than 1, right? So that there will be a large collection of points, okay, such that the distance of all these points from the origin is less than 1. The set of all those points is called the open ball around 1, or the open ball around 0, or the open neighborhood around 0. Right? So set of all points whose distance is less than 1, okay, will be called the open ball around 0 of radius 1, or the open neighborhood around 0 of radius 1. You know why it's called the open neighborhood? Because you really don't find the boundary, no? You don't find the boundary. You keep on walking, you don't really find the boundary, right? Okay. In general, you have, this will be not necessarily 1, any r I can think of. I can think of a circle of any radius, right? So I have an open ball around r. Right? Around 0. Around 0 or really around any point. I can choose some point here and do the same thing. And I can think of the set of all points around this point x which are at a distance less than r. Then I can find such an open neighborhood around any point. Yeah.
So can you explain it again?
Yeah. So I have this 0. I have a thread. I have a drawing pin put at 0. I have a thread. At the end of the thread is a pencil. the thread is 1 inch long, one unit long really, and I draw a circle. How do you describe the circle? What would be the definition of this circle? If you have to describe this circle, what would you describe the circle as? You describe this circle as a set of points which are exactly 1 unit away from 0. So circle is nothing but a set of points, right? Which has the property that all those points are exactly 1 unit away from 0. Set of all points exactly 1 unit away from 0 is the circle, right? Okay. Now think of the set of all points which are less than 1 unit away from 0, right? So suppose you are here, and suppose you keep on searching for this point, right? So let me say I start from here, and suppose I keep on walking on this line. I want to find every single point on this line. Will I ever be able to come to the end of this line? No. So I will never get the boundary of that line, no? Unless I miss some points and jump. Yeah, but I can never come to the last point of that line. This is the point. Therefore, that whole object is called an open neighborhood of radius 1 around 0. But I can think of, in principle, an open neighborhood of any radius around any point. Okay? Right? Okay. Now, interestingly, we think of any point around this line, no point will lie on the boundary. Therefore, every point on this line will be inside the set. That is, if you take any point, you will always find some area around that point which is entirely inside the set, inside the circle. Such points are called interior points of the set. Okay, what we call an interior point of the set in R. So if you have a subset of R, right, a point is called an interior point if around that point there exists some circle which lies entirely within the set. Then we will call that point an interior point of the set. Okay? Now using this definition of interior point, give me an alternative definition of an open set. Let's formally define an open set.
Collection of all interior points.
Collection of all interior points. Is an open set a collection of all interior points? Or is there a better way of defining an open set? You're right, collection of all, but you see collection of all interior points is a little bit of a problematic definition. Can you think of another? But see, the idea of interior point is a good idea to define an open set. How do you define an open set? Yeah? Yeah, but an interior point by definition does not include its boundary. But let's develop this one.
Union of all the open balls inside the
Union of all the open balls. Yeah, but I have a more intuitive. Can you somebody give a more intuitive definition? Suppose I think of an open set as a set, all whose points are interior points. Is it a good definition? An open set is a set, all whose points are, an open set is a non-empty set, all whose points are interior points. Is that a workable definition? Let's debate this. An open set is a set, all whose points are interior.
So, but that can also be a part of a closed set, right?
In the closed set, are all points and interior points?
Not all points, but it will include.
Yeah, but we are saying every point of an open set is an interior.
Okay.
So an open set is a point each where every point is an interior point. So an open set is an R is a set, okay, where each point belonging to the set is an interior point of the set. Are you understanding this definition? Yeah? Perfectly fine. So think of the open set -1, 1. So set of all points essentially, so if I have a real number line, this is the set, no? Which will contain -1, which will contain all points between -1 and 1. Is every point an interior point of this set? Yes.
Yes.
Because you have all points between -1 and 1 without -1 and 1. So for any point in this set, there are some points around that set. That for any point in this set, there is some region around that those points which belong entirely to -1, 1. Yeah? So every point of this set is indeed an interior point. Many of you have not followed this definition. So let's work on this.
So, but there is -1 and 1 also, right?
-1 and 1 is not included. We are drawing a circle of radius less than 1. So it will contain all points between -1 and 1. Right? But not -1 and 1. Set of all points whose distance from origin is less than 1. Will contain all points between -1 and 1, but not -1 and 1. So every point that is contained in this will always have a neighborhood around that point which is contained in the set. Because it's not the last point. You can't have last point here. It's the last point, there is some area around that which will be contained in the set. No? So one way of defining an open set is to say that it's a set which contains all its interior points. All its interior points, right? So an open set is a set which contains all its interior points. Is this absolutely clear? Right? Yeah? Okay? So, now tell me, I have a set, okay? I have a set, say, 2, 3. This is a set A, and union of a set which contains only 0. Yeah? So think of a set A, which is a set of all points between 2 and 3, not including 2 and 3, and 0. Is this an open set? It contains all points between 2 and 3 and 0. Is this an open set? Is this an open set? Yes. Is every point belonging to this set an interior point? Is 0 an interior point? No, because it just contains 0 but no neighborhood around 0, right? So it's not an open set. Right? It's not an open set. Right? It is not an open set. Sure? Okay? Now when we define, so now think of okay. So that's how we define an open set. We need to come to closed sets as well, but I'll still take some time to come to closed sets. Idea of an open set is clear. So how will you think of it? How will you find whether a set is an open set in any dimensions? Just check whether every point of the set is an interior point of the set. Right? Every point of the set is an interior point of the set. Okay? Right? Okay. So now think of, so let me define a sequence. Okay, so think of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Think of one of these arrangements of terms. Right? Think of say 1/2 of say 1/3, 1/4, 1/5. Think of 1 minus 1, 1 minus 1. Right? Okay? Now each of these collections is called a sequence. Why is it called a sequence? Because you can always count the elements. So the first element of the first set is 1, the second element of the second set is 2, the third element of the third set is 3, and so on. In the second case, the first element is 1, the second element is half, the third element is 1 by 3, the fourth element is 1 by 4, and so on. Right? In the third set, the first element is 1, the second element is minus 1, the third element is again 1, the fourth element is minus 1, the fifth element is 1, and so on and so on. So there are 3 different sequences. So what's a sequence? As long as whenever you put a collection of numbers and count them, so you know which is the first number, which is the second number, which is the third number, which is the fourth number. As long as you give an index of natural numbers or integers really, first, second, third, fourth, 5, 6, counting, you have a sequence. Right? Okay. Now tell me one thing. Is there a difference between the 3 sequences? What is the difference between the 3 sequences? Yeah? What is the difference between the 3 sequences? No. There is a more fundamental difference between the 3 sequences. The first one, the terms are becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. The second, they are becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. And the third, they are not going anywhere. They are becoming neither bigger nor smaller. Right? Now we are interested in this particular sequence. It's a very interesting sequence. Okay. Now next lecture I'm going to get a cake for all of you in class. Okay? But what I'm going to do is, I'm going to cut the cake into half, because I can't eat cakes, give you the half. Right? Once you finish the half, I'm going to, whatever remains, I'm going to cut it into half again and give it. Then whatever remains, I'm going to cut it again into half and give it. Whatever remains, I'm going to give it again into half and give it. And I'm going to keep on doing it. So what I'm describing the sequence, I started with one cake, then the next time became half a cake, then became 1/4 of a cake. So can you write the terms of the sequence down? If I have to write the terms of the sequence down, what should I do? If I have to write the terms of the sequence down, what should I do?
Divide by 2.
How will the sequence look like? Yeah? I started with that one cake, half a cake, then like that, right? Okay. So this can be written as 1/n. As n goes from 1 to so on, then I'll get elements of this sequence, right? I'll get elements of this sequence if I write 1/n, n goes from 1 to 2, etc., right? 1, half, n becomes 3, I get 1 by 3, n becomes 4. How will I write the elements of this sequence? Two raised to, and n starts from 1. Then the first element n starts from 0. 0, 1, 2, 3, so on. Alright? Okay. Now come back to my cake example. Yeah? Will my cake will become smaller and smaller and smaller? But will my cake actually ever vanish altogether? Will I ever reach a point where there is no cake? At some point of time the cake I have left will be very, very, very small. But assume that I can always think of sufficiently fine knives to cut the cake. And I have a lovely, lovely, lovely microscope which I get from NASA, so I can see my cake even when it becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. You might wonder what is this man doing, right? Because I give you the cake, but then nothing is doing experience, right? Okay, fine, but there will still be some cake, no? So I will be justified in continuing my operation. Okay, so my cake will never vanish. But at some point, you will start waiting for the next round of cake, because you will not get really anything worthwhile. So at some point you will say that the cake has vanished, but the cake would not actually have vanished. Right? Now when you will say it has vanished? When will you say it has vanished? When you get tired of sitting here and you see nothing coming your way. But that depends upon your patience, right? If you are really a cake lover, then you will wait longer. If you are even more desperate cake lover, you will wait even longer. Right? Okay? So think of your desperation to eat a cake as an epsilon. Right? You have a larger epsilon means you don't like cakes so much. You have a smaller epsilon, then you really like cakes more. Right? Okay? And the more you like your cake, the smaller will be your epsilon. Right? Some of you will leave when that epsilon, when my cake, so think of 0. And some of you will leave who don't like cakes too much when my cake has entered after being cut into a certain epsilon distance from 0. Those of you who are going to wait longer will have a smaller epsilon. Those of you who are going to wait even longer will have an even smaller epsilon. Right? The point is, at each point of time there will be some epsilon neighborhood around 0. And however small that epsilon neighborhood around 0 is, I can always cut the cake sufficiently many times to get it inside that epsilon so that you leave. Right? Okay? Sure? So, think of 0 as a point. The cake never reaches 0. But I can cut the cake as many times as I feel like to bring the cake around an epsilon neighborhood of 0 for any arbitrarily chosen epsilon. Right? In which case, 0 is said to be the limit point of this sequence, or a point of accumulation of this sequence. I have a sequence. As n becomes larger and larger and larger, this sequence gets closer and closer to a particular point where it is actually getting into that point. And by choosing n sufficiently large, I can get my sequence to get as close as I want to that point. If such a point exists, then I call that point the point of accumulation of that sequence, or the limit point of that sequence. I can call that point of accumulation of sequence.